I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. One of Donald Trump's former senior lawyers who spread disinformation about the 2020 election has essentially vanished. This, according to a new blockbuster filing in federal court in Washington, D.C., in a defamation lawsuit filed against Rudy Giuliani by Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, the Georgia election workers who Rudy Giuliani defamed and said these heinous and horrific things about them. In their defamation lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani, they've been pushing for more discovery and more documents, since Rudy Giuliani is essentially saying he doesn't have any money to even participate in discovery. He's filed these declarations saying he's too broke to even litigate the case. And as they've been pushing for information from Giuliani, Giuliani divulged that an individual who would have information relevant to this case is none other than Jenna Ellis, a former top Trump lawyer who was essentially Rudy Giuliani's sidekick, and they would go around and hold these hearings in hotel lobbies and conference rooms instead of official proceedings, where they would proceed to spread all of this election disinformation. And you may recall the incident where Rudy Giuliani spread COVID via fart to Jenna Ellis, where they were at this made-up hearing they had spreading election disinformation, where seriously, Rudy Giuliani just farted on Jenna Ellis in public. Here, play this clip.
The answer.
You have a point of order.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they don't want to know the truth.
And shortly thereafter, Jenna Ellis contracted COVID. But let me get back to this federal filing by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss's lawyer in federal court. They said, look, Rudy Giuliani disclosed that Jenna Ellis is a key witness, and they've been trying to subpoena Jenna Ellis. They've been first trying to interact with someone who purported to be her lawyer in Colorado, and then they learned she moved to Florida, and they've had a process server scouring all of Florida and Colorado trying to find her, but she's either vanished or she's in hiding. Let me read for you this filing by the lawyers in this defamation case. They write, first, defendant Giuliani amended his initial disclosures on March 24th, 2023, to add a number of individuals whom he admits are likely to possess relevant information on which he plans to rely, including third-party Jenna Ellis. Just so you know, in a federal lawsuit, you have to file or exchange what's called an initial disclosure, and you have to amend it as more information becomes available to you. And one of the things these disclosures ask you is to put witnesses who you think know about the underlying claims or who could support your defense. And so Giuliani named Jenna Ellis in this filing that was exchanged with the plaintiff's lawyers in this case. So they naturally wanted to question Jenna Ellis. The filing goes on to say, defendant Giuliani identified Miss Ellis in his updated disclosure as being, quote, involved with providing Giuliani with information and discussing with Giuliani allegations regarding plaintiffs that Giuliani relied on when making statements about plaintiffs in his deposition testimony. Defendant Giuliani highlighted Miss Ellis as his, quote, assistant who had knowledge of an alleged USB drive video, and discovery has illustrated her critical involvement in the defamatory allegations at the heart of plaintiff's claims. So there, Giuliani's calling Jenna Ellis, who purported to be a senior attorney, that's at least what she was telling all of the press, but Giuliani said that she was his, quote, assistant. And also here the plaintiffs are saying and suing Giuliani that Jenna Ellis seems to be involved in the defamation and has critical information. The motion goes on to say, following defendant Giuliani's deposition on March 1, 2023, plaintiffs promptly reached out to the attorneys whom plaintiffs had previously been conferring with for purposes of a Rule 45 document subpoena on Miss Ellis. The Kleinbard counsel, that's the lawyer's name, Kleinbard, to request a meet and confer to discuss potential deposition testimony. While the meet and confer on March 29, 2023 was seemingly productive, Klein-Bard counsel then failed to respond for nearly 3 weeks, prompting plaintiffs to prepare a deposition and document subpoena for Miss Ellis, the Ellis subpoena, which was served on the Klein-Bard counsel on April 19, 2023. On April 21, 2023, Klein-Bard counsel refused to accept service of the Ellis subpoena, and on April 28, 2023, after more than a month of negotiation about the deposition subpoena and more than 9 months after beginning to confer on the earlier subpoenas, to which Miss Ellis never produced documents, Klein-Bard counsel represented for the first time that they no longer represented Miss Ellis. Let me just pause there and break that all down. So over the course of this case, the plaintiff's lawyers, the lawyers for Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, have been conferring about a subpoena to Jenna Ellis, and they've been working with these lawyers known as the Klein-Bard law firm, and they said, hey, we need to issue these subpoenas to you, and they had a very productive meeting where they thought that these documents would be produced, but then the Klein-Bard lawyers who represent Jenna, they essentially stopped responding. So the plaintiff's lawyers for Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman just sent them the subpoena and said, well, we need the documents. So if you don't want to be cooperative, we're going to serve you the subpoena because you said you're representing her. And then when they got the subpoena, these Klein-Bard lawyers who represent her claimed, actually, we don't represent her anymore. We're not the lawyers. And this is the first time that was ever told to them. It was like lying to the plaintiff's lawyers. They thought they were dealing with the real lawyers here. It goes on to say, in the week since, plaintiffs have attempted personal service on Miss Ellis. They've tried to find her because these lawyers are saying they don't represent her anymore. Plaintiffs have made various attempts at her last known address in Colorado until learning that Miss Ellis had recently moved to Florida with no discernible address. Plaintiffs requested the assistance of Klein-Bard counsel and counsel for defendant Giuliani in contacting Miss Ellis and or her new counsel to reach an agreement that would obviate the need to secure Miss Ellis' testimony. To date, plaintiffs' efforts have been rebuked. Plaintiffs have incurred significant time and expense, including hiring a private investigator in an attempt to locate Miss Ellis' new Florida address, and still have been unable to locate and serve Miss Ellis. Defendant plans to rely on Miss Ellis in his defense. Giuliani says he's going to rely on her in his defense, and plaintiffs would be severely prejudiced if they were unable to depose Miss Ellis. So the facts here are, just going through that timeline again really quickly, that the plaintiff's lawyers, the lawyers for Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, they were dealing with these lawyers, this Klein-Bard people, who said they were representing her. They met. The lawyers then just stopped responding. They served the lawyers. The lawyers then said, we're not representing Jenna Ellis anymore. So Freeman and Moss's lawyers then just reached out directly to try to find Jenna Ellis. They couldn't find her. They found out she's in Florida. They said, can you help us identify her? And Giuliani's lawyers and the Klein-Bard lawyers like, no, we're not going to help you. And they hired a private investigator, and no one can find where Jenna Ellis is. So the plaintiffs are bringing this to the attention of the court to let them know, Judge, we need your intervention to find Jenna Ellis, to find this lawyer who's disappeared. And look, what has we always said here that MAGA stands for? Make attorneys get attorneys. And just look what's happening to Jenna Ellis here. You've got Rudy Giuliani basically saying Ellis was involved. She's like in hiding right now. By the way, MAGA has turned on her because she said somewhat nice things about Ron DeSantis. And in the MAGA Republican cult, you're not allowed to say nice things about anybody other than Donald Trump. And so she said something like, I respect President Trump, but I'm tired of his campaign hypocritically accusing Ron DeSantis of doing things they do. Since they insist on lying about DeSantis, I have created a running list of Team Trump ties to Jeb, the swamp, and woke corporations, whatever that even means. And then you have MAGA people saying a totally unimpressive lawyer who helped tank Trump's post-election chances. And so all of MAGA's turned on her. She wrote a statement about how she feels that she's being harassed by MAGA right now, and that MAGA has vile people associated with it who are going after her. I mean, by the way, this is the person who wrote "This You" to AOC after AOC was being sexually harassed by these MAGA Republican vile people. And she's the one who perpetuated all of this stuff, this hateful stuff to begin with. By the way, Jenna Ellis is also the person who approved a stipulation of censure against herself, admitting that she lied regarding the 2020 election, and she stipulated to all of the false statements that she made and received a public censure by the Colorado State Bar. We have it right here. Here's the order approving the stipulation. And so she's apparently vanished. She's in hiding. She's been censured by the State Bar of Colorado. MAGA Republicans have turned on her, and she says they're harassing her. Giuliani's identified her as a witness. She's refusing to accept the subpoena. It's total chaos, but it is perfectly MAGA, folks. Nothing says MAGA like Jenna Ellis. I mean, it is the perfect example of what happens to these people. I mean, and when are they going to learn? They're never going to learn, but it's not normal behavior, and we'll let you know if they find her. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. Thanks to your awesome support. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And finally, wherever you get podcasts, subscribe on audio. Thank you so much for watching, and hit subscribe.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.